Hello, my name is Georgi Dauman. I am Senior Technical Marketing Architect at VMware. Today I will demonstrate you how to use advanced version of VMware Cloud Sizer. Advanced Sizer Classic is focused on the sizing of VDI workloads using data samples collected by RV tools or Live Optics. You could also use manual inputs for workload configuration. Let's start with the manual inputs. They are the same as for Quick Sizer, except for additional IOPS field for virtual machines. The big change is hidden under the Additional tab, which allows you to change default values and fine-tune workload parameters. You can change CPU and memory utilization, target RAM ratio to define memory overcommit, dedupe and compression ratio, I/O access pattern, I/O size, and read-to-write ratio. You could also change workload profile name to make it more specific. Global Settings window allows you to change parameters like SDDC appliance size, which depends on the size of your infrastructure and number of virtual machines. The following settings are applicable for non-VDI workloads only. You can enable stretched cluster, change required fault tolerance policy, reserved CPU headroom value, and for i4 and i3 EN hosts, you could modify hyper-threading weight. Advanced Sizer also allows you to select add-on integrated services for migration and disaster recovery. Selecting these services would add footprint to the capacity consumed by the system workloads. VMware HCX allows to extend your on-premises environments to the cloud for seamless workload migration. You could also select one of the disaster recovery services. These integration services are supported for non-VDI workloads only. You would see corresponding section for these services in additional info. It would be also added into the report. The import option supports VDI workloads and allows you to use RV tools or Live Optics data from the customer's environment. During the import, you can decide would you need to use powered on virtual machines or add powered off and suspended as well. You could also consider using provisioned or utilized storage and memory for calculation. After the import, new workload profile is created with the total number of VMs and average values for vCPU, RAM, and storage per VDI desktop. Selecting VDI instant or full clone workload type affects storage consideration for the calculation. PDF report contains information regarding all workloads used for sizing. You could also save the project for future reference. Let's take a look at new version of Advanced Sizer. It could be useful for sizing non-VDI workloads and using RV tools or Live Optics data. Manual workload inputs are on the roadmap and would be available in the future releases. New Sizer looks at each workload individually and allows to find workloads unsuitable for the cloud infrastructure. It also gives more accurate recommendations by providing individual workload placement. The workload data import process is the same as for Advanced Sizer Classic, but there are few enhancements introduced for workload profiles. Global settings now have the option to exclude management overhead. This would remove SDDC vCenter and other service workloads from the calculation, which is useful for expanding existing SDDC use cases. Profile settings allow you to tweak parameters for specific workloads. You can select to use separate cluster, host type, and custom fault tolerance policy for each workload profile. This provides a precise approach for virtual machines placement. Another good news, it supports external storage in addition to vSAN. Sizer works with VMware Cloud Flex and Amazon FSx for NetApp on tap. You could also fine-tune default sizing parameters for each of the workload profiles, depending on your requirements. Recommendation section of the new Sizer would highlight any workloads that require attention and are not eligible for cloud migration. Outlier criteria is based on vCPU, RAM, and storage configuration of virtual machine. vCPU and RAM should be lesser than 75% of total host resources multiplied by overcommit factor. VM storage usage should not cross 50% capacity at the cluster level, and required performance should not be above storage capabilities. In our example, we can see that one of the virtual machines couldn't fit with external storage throughput and IOPS ratio. Recommendations would also include external storage details with capacity requirements, file system, estimated data transfer, and cost assumptions. In addition to the report with the recommendations summary, you could use a cluster mapping report with proposed virtual machine placement across clusters. If you have any VMs which couldn't be supported, they would be highlighted in the unsupported workloads report.